In the village of Maboko, where the baobab trees whispered old secrets and elders' words were heavier than law, a strange silence fell the day Shafika returned. No call, no letter, no rumor from the nearby market. Just the quiet screech of tires and a dusty van that left as quickly as it came. She stood at the edge of the compound, wrapped in a torn shawl, her once golden skin dulled by wind and maybe something deeper. On her feet were plastic sandals that barely clung to her heels. Not a bracelet, not a phone, not a suitcase. She looked empty. From the kitchen hut came her mother, Mama Nyari, wiping flour off her hands, her long kiteng skirt dragging dust. As she hurried, behind her from the cattle shed came Baba Kazi, the father, a man of few words and heavy walking sticks, and near the well stood Uncle Mbura, the loudest mouth in the clan, already narrowing his eyes. "Hey," Mama Nyari gasped, arms halfway open in joy but paused by doubt. "Is that my daughter? My child from the city of glass?" Shafika bowed her head. "They threw me out," she whispered, her voice dry like old maize. "They said I broke. Visa rules, I have nothing." For a moment no one said a word. Then Uncle Mbura, ever the snake hiding in grass, clicked his tongue loud enough for the goats to hear. "Hey, a whole girl from this home. Deported. Hey, may the ancestors not hear this disgrace." "Shh," Mama Nyari snapped, though her eyes were now scanning Shafika up and down. "She is still my blood." But Baba Kazi, silent as a tree, turned away without a word and went back to his stool. The silence of fathers in Maboko was often more dangerous than the curses of enemies. You were watching from under the mango tree, you, the quiet cousin from another village who'd come to help for the harvest. You'd always admired Shafika growing up, not just for her beauty, but for how she spoke, how she dreamed. She was the only girl in Maboko who ever said things like, "I want more than this life." But this girl who returned, she wasn't the same. That night the whispers began. Auntie Mwasi, grinding maize, said, "She must have done something shameful over there. No girl just gets deported like that." Old man Kasongo, chewing sugarcane outside his shop, murmured, "Maybe she got pregnant by a foreigner. That's why she walks like shame is eating her spine." Even the children played near her window, singing mock songs. Dubai girl came home with dust on her feet. What did she do in the land of meat? But you saw something in her eyes that the others missed. That night, sitting by the dying fire, you quietly asked her, "Shafika, is it true? Were you deported?" She looked at you, her eyes glassy and scared. "No," she whispered, "but they can't know the truth." That night, after everyone had gone to sleep, you sat beside the dying fire while the crickets sang their usual lonely song. Shafika sat opposite you on a stool, her knees pulled to her chest like she was trying to shrink herself small enough to disappear. You had asked her quietly, "Is it true? Were you deported?" She looked up slowly. Her eyes glistened, but not with tears. No, there was fear, and behind that something much deeper. Shame? No. A secret? No, she whispered, her voice barely reaching your ears. "But if I told them the truth, they'd destroy me anyway." You leaned forward, confused. "So, what happened?" She didn't answer, just stood up and walked to her room, leaving her shawl hanging off the chair like a piece of her story fallen behind. The next morning, the village woke up early, as always. But that day felt different. Baba Kazi hadn't spoken to anyone. Instead, he sharpened his machete for hours, like something inside him needed control. Mama Nyari hadn't cooked. She just stared at the fire with red eyes, and Uncle Mbura, he was already moving from house to house, planting gossip like bad seeds in dry soil. "She's lying," he told old Mama Luli. "You watch. That girl brought a curse from Dubai. You'll see that house will soon fall. You walked with a bucket toward the well and the whispers followed you. Isn't that her cousin? He lives in the same house. He must know the truth. They say she worked in a bar, a bad kind of bar. She had money once. Why didn't she bring anything back? You wanted to scream, to slap sense into the whole village. But your voice felt small here. Truth was weak where gossip was strong. That evening, a family meeting was called under the mango tree. All elders sat, legs crossed, hands on canes. Shafika stood in the middle, her shoulders straight, but you could see her legs slightly shaking. Baba Kazi finally spoke, his voice like a slow drum beat. Shafika, daughter, we raised you with rules, with love, with the stories of our ancestors. In your ears, we sent you to Dubai with prayers, and now you return like a beggar. Tell us what really happened. Shafika looked around, at her mother who still wouldn't meet her eyes, at Uncle Mbura smirking, and at you. For a second, just a second, you saw a flicker of fire in her. I will tell you, she said, standing taller, but not the lie you all want. And then she said it. I wasn't deported, I ran away. Gasps cut through the air like machetes. I worked in a house, she continued. A rich family. The man there, he... She stopped. Her lips trembled. She blinked fast, and then she shook her head. He made life impossible. I left before I lost my soul. I had money, but on my last day, I gave it all to someone who needed it more. I came back with nothing, except my name. Uncle Mbura laughed coldly. So now you are a hero? A girl of honor? In this family, we don't eat names, Shafika. Mama Nyari didn't speak. Baba Kazi stood up slowly, shook his head, and walked away. And for the first time since she came home, Shafika cried. You stood up beside her. You didn't know what to say. But you knew one thing. She had told the truth. And in a place like Maboko, sometimes the truth costs more than a lie. The days that followed were heavy like the clouds before a storm. Shafika stayed mostly indoors, helping Mama Nyari with chores, though no one really spoke to her. Not with full hearts. Not even Mama. Her presence around the house was like a broken mirror, still there, but nothing reflected right. The village of Maboko, however, was not silent. The gossip only got louder. She gave her money away, scoffed old Aunt Juma near the market. That one must think she's a prophet. If she was my daughter, I'd send her back to the airport myself. They should take her to the chief, said Elder Rono while playing bow under the mango tree. We don't need cursed hearts spreading in the village. You tried to defend her once, in the market, when two young men joked that Shafika must have slept her way into trouble. You told them to shut their mouths, but all you earned was mocking laughter. She's not even your sister, eh? They laughed. Why so angry, cousin? Or is she more than cousin now? Their words stung, not because of the joke, but because you yourself were starting to feel something you hadn't planned. You'd come for the harvest. But every day since Shafika returned, something about the way she fought to remain dignified made you see her not just as family, but as a woman of deep strength. And yet even you couldn't reach her. One afternoon you found her sitting alone by the riverbank. Her legs were in the water and her eyes were fixed on the horizon. She didn't look up as you sat next to her. They don't believe me, she said. I do, you replied softly. I wish that was enough, she whispered. Then after a long pause she said, You know what hurts more than anything? What? That when you come home broken, people don't ask what broke you. They ask why you let it happen. You looked at her face, still proud, still fighting tears. Why didn't you just tell the truth the day you came? You asked. Because, she said, looking down, in Maboko lies give you sympathy. Truth gives you exile. Just then a boy came running toward you. It was little Musa, the neighbor's son, barefoot and breathless. Come quickly. Uncle Mburas, he's telling the elders that Shafika cursed his goats. What? You and Shafika both stood at once. He says since she came back, his animals won't eat. He's calling for a village judgment. By the time you reached the gathering tree, a crowd had already formed. Uncle Mbura was at the center, loud as ever. Ask the spirits, ask the ancestors, he bellowed. This girl came back, and now my goats are starving. My wife has boils, and even the mangoes are bitter. She brought something from Dubai, something evil, the crowd murmured, eyes darting between Shafika and the old man. She must be cleansed, someone muttered. She needs to go to the river shrine. Another shouted. Shafika stood still, hands clenched. Then you stepped forward. Enough, you shouted, your voice surprising even yourself. Are we villagers or vultures? You blame a girl for your sick goats, then maybe next week your wife burns. Food, you'll say Shafika cursed your fire? Some laughed nervously, but most were quiet. She told you the truth, you continued. And instead of hearing her, you crucify her for surviving. Even Baba Kazi, who had stood silently at the back, looked up. But it wasn't over. Elder Rono stepped forward, holding a carved stick. She must prove herself, he said, or she leaves. That is Maboko law. Everyone looked at Shafika. Her face was stone. Then I'll prove it, she said. The sky above Maboko had turned a strange shade of grey, as if it too was unsure whether to rain or just watch in silence. The next morning, the family was summoned. Not just Shafika, not just Baba Kazi. The entire house was expected at the elders' circle, where disputes were settled in the old ways. It was a place of both wisdom and cruelty, depending on who held the talking stick. Elder Rono, the keeper of village rituals, stood with his long staff carved with ancestor symbols. The wind ruffled his white beard as he spoke. Shafika, daughter, of this land, blood of Kazi, flame of Nyari, you stand accused not of a crime in law, but of disturbing the balance of Maboko. Shafika stood, her back straight. You returned with secrets, he continued. You lied. You brought shame. And now sickness walks in the shadow of your home. You must face the water truth ritual. You felt your stomach twist. Even you had only heard of it in whispers. A ritual where the accused must carry water in a clay pot from the river to the elders without spilling a drop, while the village chants the truth. If the pot survives and the water reaches whole, she is clean. If it cracks or spills, she's cursed. A symbol, not a science. But in Maboko, symbols were everything. Mama Nyari protested softly. She is my daughter. She is your burden, Elder Rono snapped. If she is innocent, she will walk clean. And so they took her down the old river path, barefoot, a small clay pot placed in her hands. You tried to walk beside her, but Elder Rono stopped you. No one walks with the accused. As she walked through the village, the people began their chant. Not words of support, but old phrases meant to break the spirit. A girl who lies will break the sky. A daughter who hides will drown her kin. The water knows. The ancestors see. Shafika kept walking. Her steps were slow. The pot trembled in her hands. She didn't look left or right. You stood with the others, helpless, hating every second. Halfway through the path, a small boy ran across the road suddenly. Shafika stumbled, but didn't drop the pot. Gasps followed her, whispers flying like birds. She reached the edge of the elders' circle. Her hands were shaking, her lips cracked. The pot still full, she looked at the crowd. Her voice was dry but steady. Here is your water. Clean, like my name. Elder Rono looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. She has passed, he said. By tradition, she is clean. But just then Uncle Mbura pushed through the crowd. Not so fast, he barked. Passing a ritual doesn't erase her lie. She still deceived us. She still returned like a thief. She returned like a survivor, you shouted back. Mbura stepped toward you, furious. Who are you to speak? Just a harvest guest. Don't involve yourself in family poison. But now, Baba Kazi stepped forward, his first public move since Shafika's return. He walked slowly, staff in hand, his face unreadable. Then, in a low, gravelly voice, he said, Mbura, you speak too much. You shame my house louder than the truth ever did. The crowd gasped. He turned to his daughter. I was ashamed, he said, but not of you, of myself, because I couldn't protect you from the world, and I couldn't protect you from this place either. Shafika's eyes filled with tears, but this time not of pain. It was the first time she'd heard his voice, not in judgment, but in sorrow. He turned to the crowd. She lied, yes, but only to survive. And if surviving is a crime, then all of you are guilty too. And just like that, the crowd went silent. The days that followed the water truth ritual felt lighter. Children started to greet Shafika again. Aunties, once sharp-tongued, now offered her vegetables and shallow smiles. Even the old women at the well began to whisper less harshly, though never completely kind. In Maboko, people didn't forget scandal. They just got tired of holding it. You noticed it first, how Shafika had started walking taller. She laughed more, especially around Mama Nyari, who now kept her closer during chores. The kitchen felt alive again, like the aroma of real healing. Even Baba Kazi, though still reserved, allowed his daughter to serve him tea again without that quiet tension. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the cicadas filled the air with their buzzing chorus, you found Shafika sitting outside with a small journal in her lap. She didn't hear you approach. "What are you writing?" you asked gently. She smiled, real this time. "Everything I couldn't say out loud." You sat beside her, a comfortable silence settling in. Then she looked at you, eyes serious. "You believed me when no one else did. I haven't forgotten that." You shrugged. "It wasn't a favor. It was just... right." She studied your face for a long moment. "You ever think about leaving? Leaving all this behind?" You chuckled softly. "Every harvest season. I mean it. Some days I think, if I hadn't gone, maybe I wouldn't have broken. But other days I wonder, if I never left, maybe I would have broken even worse." You nodded. You understood her more than you realized. Both of you were different, misfits in a world tied too tightly to tradition. Just then a loud voice called out from the front path, "Mama Niari! Visitors!" Everyone turned. A black SUV, far too shiny for village dust, rolled up and stopped near the fence. Out stepped a man in a white shirt, gold ring, sunglasses even though the sun had begun to set. He looked foreign, but not unfamiliar. Shafika stood suddenly, her entire body tensed. "No," she whispered. Mama Niari walked forward, confused. "Can we help you, sir?" The man took off his glasses. His smile was smooth, too smooth. "I've come for Shafika," he said casually. "We know each other. From Dubai." The village murmured. Even you stepped forward, heart pounding. "Who are you?" He looked at you with amused eyes. "I'm the reason she ran away." And then he looked at her directly. "You didn't think you could disappear forever, did you?" Shafika's knees buckled slightly. "You caught her before she fell. I left everything to escape you," she said, voice barely a whisper. The man laughed softly. "And yet here I am. No more lies, darling." "Mama." Nyari stared, horrified. "Shafika, who is this man?" The silence that followed was thicker than storm clouds. And then, without breaking eye contact, Shafika said, "He was my boss. He tried to own me. He nearly destroyed me. I didn't just run. I escaped." The man smirked. "Then let's see if your little village can protect you." And just like that, the past that Shafika buried with so much pain walked right into her home. No one moved. The only sound was the soft rustle of wind through dry banana leaves and the quiet buzzing of insects. But inside the compound it felt like time had frozen. The man, smooth, calm, dangerous, took another step forward. "I don't want trouble," he said. "I just want what belongs to me," Mama Niari gasped. Babakazi stood at the doorway now, leaning on his staff, silent but watching. "What do you mean by that?" you asked, stepping in front of Shafika. The man's smile didn't fade. "She signed a contract. She broke it. She owes me." His tone was polished, professional, even gentle. But the poison behind his words was clear. "A contract doesn't give you ownership over someone's soul," you said. He looked at you like a bug, annoying, temporary. "And you are?" "I'm someone who doesn't scare easy." Shafika slowly stepped forward. Her hands were shaking, but her voice didn't break. "You think I'm still scared of you, but I'm not. I have nothing left to lose. You can scream, threaten, twist the story, but here in Maboko, you don't own anyone. You're nothing here." The man raised an eyebrow. "You think this village will protect you?" "After they hear what I have to say." Now the entire village was gathering. Word had spread fast, as it always did. Elder Rono arrived. Uncle Mbura came hobbling up too, already wearing that smug, "I told you" look. "What's going on here?" Rono asked, eyes narrowing at the stranger. The man straightened his shirt. "I am Mr. Farid. I run employment houses in Dubai. Shafika worked under our agency. She left without notice. She cost us a lot. I'm here to collect what she owes." Mama Niari stepped forward, trembling. "You're saying my daughter is your debt?" Farid smiled slightly. She agreed, she signed, but Babakazi's voice cut through like thunder. "Did she sign to be abused?" he asked, stepping forward. "Did she sign to be trapped, worked, like a slave, scared to speak?" Farid didn't answer. "Then what she signed is not a contract, it is a chain, and here we break chains." The crowd started murmuring in agreement now. Something had shifted. Then Elder Rono asked one final question. "Shafika, did you steal from this man?" "No," she said. "I left without money, but I didn't steal. I was escaping." Rono turned to Farid. "Then you have no place here. If she owes you something, take it to court in your land, but this is our land, and here she is protected." Farid's smile finally faded. He stepped back, eyes dark now. "You think you've won something?" he hissed. "You've won nothing." He turned and walked back to his SUV, dust kicking up as the tires spun away, and as the vehicle vanished down the road, the crowd turned. To Shafika, not with shame, not with judgment, but with respect. Even Uncle Mbura stayed quiet, though his eyes were still burning. Shafika collapsed to her knees, not from weakness, but from finally putting something down that had weighed her. For too long, you knelt beside her, resting a hand on her shoulder. She didn't speak, but she didn't pull away either. Mama Nyari came behind her, wrapping her arms tightly around her daughter, and for the first time, maybe ever, the family was holding each other together instead of tearing each other apart. The days after Farid's departure were strange. The village of Maboko had seen many things before, floods, fires, even spirits in the night, but it had never seen a woman rise from shame to strength in front of its eyes. Suddenly the same people, who used to lower their voices when she walked by, now greeted her. "Shafika, will you help us write a letter for my cousin overseas? Can you explain what this document means? Please talk to my daughter. She wants to leave for..." The city, something had shifted, and Shafika. She stepped into this new version of herself slowly, carefully but gracefully. You watched it all from under trees, from doorways, from across evening fires. She was different now, not because she came from Dubai, but because she had walked through fire and chosen not to burn. One afternoon you found her near the old well, teaching little Musa how to pronounce English words from a torn children's book. You leaned against a tree, watching for a moment, smiling. "You're a teacher now?" you teased. She grinned. "I guess I've been a lot of things." There was a long pause. Then she stood, brushing dust from her skirt. "You never asked me why I gave that money away before coming back," she said. "I figured you'd tell me when you were ready." She nodded slowly, eyes searching yours. "There was another girl from Sudan, younger than me. The man, Farid, he had plans for her too. I gave her the money and told her to run. I stayed behind to distract him long enough for her to escape. You blinked. You never told anyone that." "They already thought I was weak," she said. "What good would it do telling them I gave up my savings for someone else?" You looked at her, really looked at her, and something clicked inside you. A kind of quiet thunder, not loud. "Just certain. You didn't give it up," you said. "You traded it for something more sacred than gold." She smiled, eyes glistening. Then she looked away. "I don't know if I'll stay here forever." "I know," you said. "But right. Now this place needs me," she added. "And I need it too." You didn't speak for a while, just sat beside her. Let the silence wrap around the two of you like a soft blanket. Later that week, Mama Nyari called you aside. "She's stronger now," she said, her voice gentle. "But still healing. You've been a part of that healing. And for that, I thank you." You felt her words land deep. Then one evening, while walking back from the market together, Shafika stopped by the stream. "You've stayed longer than you planned," she said. You nodded. "The harvest ended weeks ago." "So, why are you still here?" she asked, though her voice was quiet, almost shy. You met her eyes. "I think maybe this place has more to harvest than just crops." She smiled, blushed slightly. "You're not bad with words." You shrugged. "I learned from watching someone survive without them." She laughed softly, and for the first time since she'd come back, it wasn't a laugh wrapped in pain, it was just joy. The season began to change in Maboko. The air was cooler now. The nights stretched longer. Birds flew lower in the mornings. And life, as it always does, began to settle back into rhythm. But nothing was quite the same. Shafika, once the silent shadow on her own doorstep, now walked the village paths with purpose. She wasn't trying to reclaim her name anymore. She had remade it. Not through words, but through her presence. She began helping young women in the village write applications, prepare for travel, speak their truth before being silenced by distance or shame. She sat with elders, helped organize supplies, taught children how to dream beyond boundaries, but with eyes open, and people listened now. Even Uncle Mbura, once her loudest critic, now nodded quietly when she passed, pretending not to look impressed. You stayed longer than you'd planned. At first it was to protect her, then it was for company. But by now you'd stopped lying to yourself. You stayed because you didn't want to leave. One evening, as the village prepared for the seasonal festival, you and Shafika sat on the rooftop, watching the stars come out one by one. She leaned back on her hands, her face calm. "Do you think people can really start over?" she asked softly. You looked at her. "You already have." She smiled. "You know, for a long time I thought Dubai was going to fix everything. That if I left, I'd come back rich, respected, perfect. But you came back broken. You said." She nodded. "And somehow that made me stronger than I've ever been." There was a long pause, then she looked at you seriously. "I might leave again someday. I don't think Mboko is my forever." "I know," you said. "But I won't leave like before," she added, "not to escape, just to grow." You smiled, feeling a quiet ache in your chest. "And if you leave, I'll walk you to the road, and wait by the same road for your return." She laughed, eyes shining with tears she didn't let fall. "And if I don't come back," she asked, "then I'll still tell everyone your story," you said, "so they remember what courage looks like." Down below, Mama Nyari was lighting lanterns. Baba Kazi was carving wood slowly. The family was closer now, not perfect, but honest, and that was enough. The village drums started in the distance, slow and steady, just like your hearts, and under the stars, surrounded by the quiet strength of a place that once tried to break. Her Shafika leaned her head gently against your shoulder, not a promise, not a fairy tale, just a moment of peace for two people who'd finally stopped running.